Good morning.
Hi, Beth. How are you?
Good. Are you in the basement of?
This is actually the security
Oh,
office. There's on my camera views. So we don't have security during the week when we're closed. So I double duty.
excellent. Well, Sue, Grubba.
Yep.
Grubba. We went on one of my Zoom connections last night just to test it all out. So, and I told her that we could jump in a little bit sooner, get her all set up. She said she texted me. She is having some power and internet issues.
Oh no.
So I said not to worry, that if everything falls apart, we're texting back and forth.
Okay.
I said, if nothing else, we can either, I don't know how you guys usually do it. We can either reschedule her, or Sue and I can record it
And
this weekend, and we could just send out the recording.
That's fine. And
So-
yeah. Is that her?
No, it's a spam risk.
Oh.
All my friends from Bad Axe.
Nice.
Yeah.
I keep getting calls from Los Angeles, California, and I hesitate to answer. And then I realize it's my 10-year-old or 9-year-old calling me through the Alexa app, through the Echo. And it just picks up so now I have to answer my LA calls because it's easy.
Right. Yeah. I've gotten them from, so my dad lives in California, my mother's in Maryland. And of course, it's listening all the time.
Yeah.
And my husband's a veteran, and we just got our COVID shots through the VA, and all my family's in Maryland. So now I'm getting calls from the US Navy from a 410, which is Maryland Exchange. And I'm like,
oh, geez.
I don't think, yeah. And I was joking about, I was talking with another colleague. We're doing a program called Pinot and Puppies.
Uh-huh.
And so we were talking about drinking wine. And before you know it, I've got a 12-step program email in my emails. And I'm like, really?
You're like, turn it down.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not that bad yet.
That's awesome. So what I did is I just have you and I in here right now. There's people in the waiting room, members, but I wasn't letting anyone else in until you and Sue had a chance to.
Yeah. Can you,
whatever.
Am I host yet?
I'm doing that right now.
Okay. Hold on here.
You are the host.
All right.
There you go. So you can see the.
Okay.
Deb Vigas and her assistant, Lynn Beamer. And Deb, do you want to say a few words?
Sure. Okay, for those who just joined us, the perennial plant sale this year will be held on Thursday, May 13th, and we'll have set up the 2 days before, May 11th and 12th. And that's also the days for drop off of your plants. As you probably most know, that this is the biggest and the most important fundraiser that we have every year. And unfortunately, last year, because of COVID, we weren't able to have it. So the funds in the garden club are down, and also at Meadowbrook. So this is even more important this year. So besides being a big fundraiser, it's really a fun event. I did it the first time 2 years ago, and I learned all kinds of things about plants and met all kinds of people. So it is really a lot of fun, especially after being closed up for a year. It's a great opportunity to come out and meet your garden friends that you haven't seen in a while, and also for new people to meet new friends. Besides, it's the best deal around for perennials, so it's a great event. There are a few things that are going to be different this year. The sale is going to be held outside in the parking lot adjacent to the sheep barn. And if you don't know where that is, we'll have signs up so that it'll guide you to it. Also, because of COVID, we can't have a bake sale, and there's going to be no potluck, but there will be coffee. So we really need your support to make this successful. So how can you participate? Okay, first of all, we need you to donate plants. The plants that we sell come from splitting plants from the Meadowbrook Gardens, and also from our members donating plants that they split from their own gardens. This is the most important thing that we need. The more plants that we get, the better the sale will be. And the more unique plants we get, the more we can charge for them, and the better the sale will be. So when you're in your gardens this spring at Meadowbrook or at home, think about us and bring in your plants. We will have pots available outside the garage on gardening days for you to use. Secondly, please volunteer. We need a lot of volunteers for the plant sale. We will need people on May 11th and 12th for setup. And on the 13th for the plant sale, we will need cashiers, salespeople, setup people, and cleanup. Please think about joining us. I'm going to be sending out an email next week for sign up. So get back to me if you're interested. And thirdly, tell us what you're looking for. I will put that in the newsletter next month. And so hopefully we'll be able to fulfill your wish list. And lastly, let us know what plants you can donate. There's going to be more information in the April newsletter and then even more in the May newsletter. So if you have any questions, contact me, and please come out and join us and donate your plants. So any
questions for Deb? Okay, thanks, Deb.
Okay.
They'll have lots of questions, I promise. Before we begin today's presentation, I just have a few protocol reminders. If you have not already done so, please mute your speaker and also turn off your camera. Beth Slade, the Assistant Director of Programs, will be collecting your questions that you can put in the chat window, and then she'll pass those questions on to Sue. Okay. Now I would like to introduce the Director of Programs, Kathy Sabansky, to introduce our speaker.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to our meeting. Today, we're very happy to have Sue Grubba, and her company is Creative Scapes, and it was founded in 1993. She specializes in landscape, night lighting, garden maintenance, and landscape design. Sue has done numerous horticultural courses for Michigan State Extension Master Gardeners, Chicago Botanical Gardens, Chicago Morton Arboretum. She is a certified landscape technology and is an advanced Extension Master Gardener. She is starting her 11th year as the president of the Association of Professional Gardeners and has been an active member since 2000. You can visit her website at mycreativescapes.com. So today we are very excited to talk about bursting into spring. We're all happy about that. And spring is one of the most exciting times of the year. For a gardener, it can be a time of great uncertainty, like some of you were talking about. Wondering which plants survived the winter and which ones will need to be replaced can make a gardener very anxious. So join Sue today as she shares her insights on the season of spring and how you can maximize the potential of your gardens. So welcome, Sue.
Thank you. Could everybody hear me okay? I'm unmuted, so I think we're good to go. What a great day to be here. Yesterday, we've been playing outside for the last week and enjoying the weather and everything. And so today the weather was perfect for us. We had to stay indoors for a while because it's all wet, but I don't know about you, but my grass just took off this morning with the green. It really needed the water. We really needed the rain. We are down. So that's a wonderful welcome sight. I've got a lot to go over here. I kind of, as I always do, kind of throw a little bit more in there than I need to, but so we're going to cover a lot of different things. So we'll get started. Bursting into spring, this is basically covering from March through the end of May, some of the things I'll be showing you. And and I thought I was going to be able to do it this way, but I can't. So I got to do it. There we go. We'll go this way. There we go. So welcome to a new awakening. That's the great part about this. And that's what we're seeing every day. It was fun listening to everybody chatting this morning and hearing the different plants that they all have coming up. This is one of the first ones in my garden that comes up. And if you'll notice on the different images, the pictures I have here, at different parts, I like down at the bottom of this one on the right-hand corner, I'm showing you that it's got 3/5 on here. So that was the date that I took this picture, was March 5th. And so I've kind of got them in a little bit of a chronological order, just going by what times of the year that they first come up. So these snowdrops, you'll notice that most of the ones that really are coming in at a time where we still have the threat of snow. These ones are always drooping down, because that way the snow can just roll off the tops of the petals instead of staying into the flower. So that's why snowdrops last as long as it does. We were all talking about the crocuses, and knock on wood, I don't even want to say anything, but my bunnies have been sleeping because they haven't gotten to them yet. I shouldn't even say that, but in the past, since last November, I had to get a new computer so that I could talk to you like this, one with a camera and everything else. And I also downloaded 9,000 pictures. So I've been doing that consistently. So that was a problem, because I found that I had so many pictures, I had a hard time figuring out which ones to put up here. So that's why you might see more than you need to. But that top picture of those crocuses, I just thought that was such a cool picture. A lot of times when you're taking them in the morning is the best time, before that sun really starts bleaching them out. And it just a great plant. If you notice, you can kind of see on the bottom right corner there, in that middle purple crocus, there is a bee coming in to land on there, and it's a honeybee coming in. And so these are great for pollinators that need something in the springtime. So a great reason to plant crocus, like what was also mentioned, is you can see them coming up in a lot of different areas. Squirrels definitely help us out, and maybe they don't, because they move them in places we might not want, but that's why they kind of pop around and move around. I put this fritillaria in here. A lot of us, I would say the 99% of us, are having deer issues now. We might not have even had them years ago, but we have them now. And this one is one that is, in any of the fritillarias, are ones that are resistant to deer, that they don't even bother them. I thought this was kind of a cool picture, in with the spirea just starting to open up, and that pretty leaf that it has. So for something different, something unique, you might want to try this type of fritillaria. The squills, look at this. That was in April. This is over at the Edsel Ford House over on Lakeshore Drive in, I think it's it's in Grosse Pointe, but right on the border of St. Clair Shores, Grosse Pointe. And it's phenomenal to see this. It's just a sea of blue in April, when, you're just like, well, here we are now. We're waiting for color to come in every day. And if you're walking around your yard, this is the time to do it. It's an awakening. It's an awesome time. And there are plants popping up that you were shocked, to know that they were there. Ice follies. I'm trying to put a lot of different ones into a presentation. These guys are probably 15 years old. So the ice follies is one of those ones that's tried and true, as most of the daffodils are. But this one, I really like the frilly flowers to them. And it's a strong plant, handles the snow and ice or anything else pretty well. And it's just a neat one. So as you see on the bottom there, this one is blooming in mid-April. I like to choose daffodils. When you go to order them, I order them a lot. I order through mail order catalogs and stuff. And this ones that we got somebody, this one that I've got, this Ice Follies one. This is one that's really strong that way, works really well. And it's a little bit later. I try to get varieties that are later blooming, just because I feel that they last longer. These two, now these are newer ones. I get these from Color Blends. That's one of the mail order companies that I use, and I'm very, very happy with their stuff. The one on the right is Sir Winston Churchill. It's not a typical daffodil with the yellow trumpet or anything, but it's got a really cool fragrance to it. I just love it for something different. And I place these like close to where anything that says fragrant, is obviously you put them close to where people walk by so that you can enjoy the fragrance. The one on the left, the Tahiti, is not as fragrant, but definitely is very outstanding because of the different petals to it. So cool plants there. And then these are the miniatures. And I honestly, I love using the miniatures. And one of the reasons is I just noticed a couple are starting to open up a little bit now because I ordered the later varieties again. That sun disc on the top, both of them, the leaves are smaller and thinner, so they're easier to hide. So when they die back, you don't have to worry about them, looking as bad. They don't really look as bad with the smaller ones. So that's kind of why I like a lot of the miniature daffodils. But the opposite thing is that they don't, they're not as big and they don't stand out. You need more to have them stand out. You guys all know the Solomon seal. I just think this is, bursting into spring. This is a cool picture. Solomon seal is right in the center, and I love it for that variegated leaf and that horizontal habit that it's going to have. The big green leaves around there with the little purple starting to come up is Virginia bluebells. And here's Solomon seal starting to open a couple days later, in with ferns and in with the trillium. So a whole dynamic going on here that just gets us going and gets us outside. And they're worth protecting. You know that the deer are going to come and get them and everything, but boy, if you can block them off so that you can have these flowers, it's a sign of spring. It's a wonderful plant. At the very, very bottom, you'll see those are Dutchman's breeches, the very fine fern leaf to that plant, and Dutchman's breeches are on the white flower in the corner. Just one that kind of pops up, hangs around for a while, and then it's gone. Doesn't make a big deal, but it's kind of a cool one to see. And if you got any little kids running around, to show them Dutchman's breeches, like it's, pants or shorts or something, that's also a neat way to go. Allium, allium, we're using more and more allium because of our deer issues. This is Globe Master, probably one of my absolute favorite, just because it's so much stronger. This is Purple Sensation. Now I've got this with that's the smoke bush behind there. That's Golden Spirit smoke bush, and I think that combination really stands out. But what you also need to know about Purple Sensation, if you're going to order it or anything, is you'll see on the left there, you have a lot of the leaves come up first, and then they start browning when the plant is in bloom, which, it's okay. It's just there, and it's just part of what's going on. But they spread by seed like crazy. So after they're done blooming, I yank a ton of them out because they always end up blooming in my walkway paths. So they're not in a spot where I want them to be. And if anything is in a spot where you don't want it to be, then technically it's a weed. So I pull those out, put them on the compost pile or whatever. So just so you know, if you're buying Purple Sensation, you're ordering that one, and you need something to spread fast and get going, that's a great one for that. But you also have to keep it under control. Here's some other ones. That one on the top right, that Allium Mount Everest, I thought that was pretty cool. As you can see, there's a little bit of a white garden arch there. So this matched a lot of the colors in their garden. And that Allium Mount Everest was as strong as the Globe Master, and really worked well. That on the very bottom, that Allium Christophii, that's a very short one, big flower, probably, I don't know, 6'8", probably 8 inches. So really, really cool flower and lasts a long time. So fun combinations to work with. Those globe blooms are just wonderful to work with because they're so fun and interesting. They make your garden stand out because no one else has things like that. So maybe a few do. This is another one in the front yard of my garden. I've got the dianthus, or the pink, down below. You can see the Globe Masters are in full bloom, and the Purple Sensation have now already, they're done blooming. So they bloom first, then the Globe Masters come in. So this is the beginning of June. And so I'll just start pulling some of those out. And then there's the Golden Spirit to the left. And because this chalk is bursting into spring, I had to put on that top left corner just how that golden spirit pops in and looks so great when it's opening up too. So it's, let's go. Let's have spring. Let's have a good time. If this is the hard part about doing a talk like this, this is really, really cool, especially in the winter time. So, we can have a snowstorm out there and we can still all be together and talk together. But in the springtime, I would love to ask everybody how many people have the foxtail lily, this is called Aramarus. And this plant is, I love it. And when you go to buy it, you typically buy it in late summer or fall. You have to order it, and it comes in and it's bare root. And so the roots kind of look like a claw like type thing. And you want to spread them out and actually put like dirt underneath them so that they sit on top of that. Well, you're still going to cover it up with dirt, but you want to spread the roots out. So it kind of looks like an octopus, so to speak. The other part about that is because it's such a thick root, you know how when we're out there rooting around and we accidentally dig into something that we forgot was there, this one you'll remember right away because it's got a thick root. You kind of spread it out like an octopus and it looks really cool. It starts blooming from the bottom and then opens to the top. So eventually it will all open up, but it starts at the bottom. You see that it's blooming with the Globe Masters. But the cool leaf it's got a nice leaf to it. It's got like a bluish green leaf to it. So it's a really good one there and with the accent with the globe and the spike of the foxtail lilies, it really makes a great combination as well. So a fun one to use. The botanical name is Eremerus, Eremerus. So a little bit different, but and the other thing I wanted to mention, I have ordered these in every color, and the only ones that really stand true and last the test of time are the yellow. I've ordered it in the white, the pink, peach, I think, and those are the main colors to it, but the yellow has been the standout that works for me. So I don't know about you guys, but that's the one that I've had the best success with. Peonies, well, we have to talk fragrance and we have to talk peonies. Here they are bursting into spring in the springtime. There are lots of different varieties of peonies, and if you're out there smelling them, we're going to talk about the ants that are out there, and yes, there will be carpenter ants out there because of the sweetness of the blooms. That's just part of the process. So if you're going to plant them, maybe plant them not close to the house, because that's just part of the whole way nature works, and we're going to get it that way. So, but very, very cool. The single ones are a lot stronger. They don't need to be staked up like the thicker petal ones are. So you might consider that. Typically the red ones, not always, but typically the red ones don't have the fragrance that some of the other ones have. So when you're ordering them, you might want to keep that in mind as well. Candy Tuft, look at this guy. When he blooms, that's a seed that's in my front yard, and I just kind of let it go, and it just keeps happening. It just keeps expanding and getting bigger. And I finally had to dig some up and move it around and split it up a little bit, but just awesome. It's just an awesome plant. And then the rest of the year, it just got the green, glossy green leaves to it. I do cut them back, like, probably in late June or something. I just go in there with hedge snippers and just kind of trim them back that way. So they're fun. This is my exclamation points in the garden. I love these two because this is their, spring, summer, fall. And it gets a purple bloom to it, but you really don't even pay attention to it as much as the leaf that you get there. The variegated iris palette come in a green with gold or green with white. And I think it just depends on the rest of your color scheme, which color you're going to go with, the green or white or the green or gold. But great exclamation. So we're getting a lot into like forms and how they really make parts of your garden stand out even more. The Jack Frost, the Berneras. Berneras are also called perennial forget-me-not, alkanet, Bernera. And it's a really cool plant. Now are the newer ones. Jack Frost is kind of fading out. You're not getting to buy that one as much anymore. And they're taking off with, I think the one that's been the hot seller lately is Sea Heart. And Sea Heart just has a thicker leaf to it, a little bit stronger, stronger variegation to it. Just as good as Jack Frost and maybe a little bit better as far as the thickness to it. So, and I find that they do well in partial shade better. Deer don't bother this. But I think partial shade, especially if they're in a sandy soil, they might dry out and flop down for you. If they're in clay, they won't do that as much. So just kind of depends on the area that you have them in. You were talking about the hellebores. Hellebores are originally, all the plants were always hanging down. And again, the same reason is because the snow could just roll right off of it, and the plant could keep going. But then hybridizers said, well, hey, wait a minute. People can't see the flowers unless you're laying on the ground looking at them, which is how I took this picture. So, laying on the ground, and you get your best pictures that way. A lot of them, you just get a little muddy, that's all. But so the newer varieties, a lot of them stand up, and that's one of the reasons why. It's just that they're just always trying to hybridize them, making the flower a little bit bigger, different colors to them, but deer don't like them. It used to be before that you never were allowed to, in the books, in the books, you didn't trim the leaves off. You left them alone. Now it's like, okay, if they look bad coming through the wintertime, go ahead and prune them back, take some, clean them out, and they'll look much better for the rest of the year. Blue Giant is a really, really cool one. The Kyandoxas, I love these just for like a fun thing. They work really well, and they're just a nice, cheerful hello there, spring is here. So if you want to try something different and you haven't tried this one, might be a good one to give a go to. And then we were talking about the primrose as well. Primrose, the main thing, partial shade for these is where they do the best. And I always give them extra hollytone every year because they are definitely more of a acidic type soil plant. And, as you know, our soil is always more alkaline. So primrose, I think, always seem to do better if I give them that little extra shot, at least once and maybe even twice a year, of the hollytone for those guys. Can't just have perennials, can't just have bulbs, got to have a lot of different things in this because everything's bursting into spring. And one of them is the Arnold's Promise. Put Arnold's Promise in here because he's blooming right now. Sometimes he can bloom as early as February, just depending on the year. And he's got a great fragrance. And the other thing with him is he's a partial shade plant, but he's also more of one that he's more vase shaped and narrow and upright. So you can put a lot underneath him, and then he still gives you like a nice outstanding statement up above. So fun plant. The witch hazels I don't think they're not used enough in the landscape, but you do have partial shade is where they do the best, but they are very, very hardy and very strong once you get them established. I tossed this one in here, the anemones. I like them, but they are very low. They're ones that you really have to kind of pay attention to, and you can kind of like pass them by a little bit. But other than that, I think they're a really, really cool plant. I don't know why. I just wish they gave me a little bit more of something, but really, really neat. And I'm probably wrong on that. What's a spring talk without forsythia? Enough said. It's just a cool plant. If the main thing with these is you're pruning after done flowering, get in there, get at the base and take out the thickest ones. Remember, when you're pruning flowering plants, that all flowering shrubs always flower best on young wood. So when you've got that thicker, older stuff, you're looking at those now and you're seeing all those heavy, thick canes. get rid of those after this is done flowering, or even now if you want, just don't cut off all the flower buds, but you could wait until after it's done. But always keep rejuvenating that plant. Get to the point where you're always taking out, you can get to the point where you can just take out 2 or 3 of the thickest ones every year and you're done. And that makes it nice and easy. Star magnolias, what I wanted to point out about these is they adapted for winter. They're very well that way because look at how you've got some buds, flowers that are in full bloom, some that are starting to open, some that are just opening, and then some that are the buds that are closed tight. So if we get that snowstorm or we get that ice storm, hopefully we're not going to do that this year, but if we do, while we might lose some of the flowers, there will be others that will step up and pop up at another time. So that's how magnolias do a lot of their, that's why the stars look so great. This is Magnolia Ann. We have a client and her name is Ann Marie. And she loves all different plants and everything. And I had done a lot of research and I wanted to get her a magnolia and I kept looking at this one. And it's everything that it was touted to be. It's got a fragrance to it. It reblooms. We haven't had any insect or disease, knock on wood, disease issues with it at all. And then sporadically throughout the summer, we're getting flowers on it. And it seems like, I think it's like 4 years old now. And we're getting more sporadic flowers through the summertime. So I'm anxious to see how much it gives us this year, but really, really cool plant and one that I would recommend. This Magnolia butterflies, this is in our subdivision. One of my neighbors has this and I just absolutely love butterflies. I think it's so cool. I wish sometimes that it lasted longer. It depends on the spring. Sometimes those flowers go on, and other times, I think wind got it last year. I think that was the problem with it last year was the wind. The other thing I would say is you can see that one on the left with the arborvitae behind it. I think if you have a background, an evergreen background behind it, then it's really, really going to stand out. So sighting on this one, if you've got a spot where you want something to really, really shine in the springtime, this would be the plant. And then the bleeding hearts, grandma's had bleeding heart, and we got to carry on that tradition. They are just so cool, just a wonderful plant. The newer varieties, probably a lot of you have this, but I love the gold heart because it brightens up a shady area. These are best in shade. Deer don't bother them. Knock on wood again, but they haven't bothered mine. I hate to say that because, tomorrow they'll be out munching something, but they haven't bothered them. And again, you get that horizontal habit, that horizontal branching to them so that they, so that they're another accent. There's something unique again. I got to put hyacinths in. The hyacinths yesterday, I walked out the front door and kaboom, they just hit me. They were all opening up. Mine are facing south. Now, with the rain, they won't be as fragrant, but then as soon as it dries up, there'll be the fragrance again. They'll be even happier because they got rain to them and got more moisture in the soil, but wonderful, wonderful plant. Back to, okay, so this is forget-me-nots with the bleeding heart. Forget-me-nots are the easiest plant in the world. You just let them go. They're biennial. So, what you see is green leaves, and this year will be flowers next year. And when they're all done, I just yank them all out, shake them out because they're biennials. They won't be back, but I yank out all the flowering ones. You can shake or you don't have to shake them. But if you do, you're shaking the seeds and you're planting the ones for next year. Piece of cake, easy as pie. So very, very cool to forget-me-nots. Okay, got to put the tulips in here in a lot of different varieties. I have some clients that we have deer and they want tulips. They don't want the yellow daffodils. They don't want certain things. They want the pink tulips. So we do our best. We've got chicken wire on them and around them as close as we can. And then we pull the chicken wire out, but we've been spraying them. The big thing to remember is that you spray them, but then they grow more. And when they grew, the spray wasn't on. So I also use like granular stuff. I use like deer scram at the base of on the soil to try to keep them away that way. But it's so many pictures, so many cool plants of tulips. These were down, a lot of these were in Grosse Pointe, and they didn't have deer over there. So in these areas, so it was kind of fun to say, oh, look how cool that is. You know, we got tulips again out there. So the penstemons, this is facing west is behind this plant. So at sunset, this plant just fires up, looks like it's fire. It's on fire. Some of the newer varieties are even stronger. This is Husker Red. Dark Towers is really cool plant with more flowers to it. This one will be getting white flowers probably in another couple of weeks for that one. The crab apples, got to toss some crab apples in, and I got to toss in things like the weeping cherry because that's part of spring. They're not a real long-lived plant, but look at this one. I mean, they can go, cherries typically 20, 25 years and they're over. Usually borers get it, different things. It's not your fault. It's just kind of like the life of the plant, but neat one for springtime. And this one, I would say, can you guess what the name of this plant is? Just as a joke, you know, but I can't see you all laughing right now. So I will just say, I never put a title on this. All I do is say, look at that plant and just smell, because you can smell that fragrance. You can, you know, and boy, we're going to have it pretty soon. May 19th for this one, it will be blooming. And I hope people have this or will try this. This is called fringe tree. It's also like a shrub. It's more of a shrub. It has got the most incredible perfume like fragrance to it. It's really, and they're starting to sell these more. When I got this is probably 15 years ago. They weren't around at all. You couldn't get them at the stores. You couldn't get them anywhere. And now you're seeing them at Bourdain's. You're seeing them at Wojo's. You're seeing it different places. That picture on the left kind of shows you what it's doing. It spreads out. It's just like an open canopy. And then as you can see, like I've got peonies underneath it. So that's kind of almost a little conflicting because the fragrance of the one versus the fragrance of the peonies, but it doesn't matter. You just sniff up and then you sniff down. So you're, you know, right in the same aisle. You just go and you smell it and you just like, oh, you know, here's heaven. Here it is. So good one to do that. How are we doing, Beth? Do we have any questions or anything you would like to toss up at this time, or are we good so far?
We do have a couple of questions, as a matter of fact. Yes. As a matter of fact, Margaret wants to make sure that she has a nice buffet out there for hers. She wants to know, are foxtail lilies and also witch hazel deer resistant?
Absolutely. I'm not going to tell unless, yeah. Foxtail lilies, they have not, knock on wood, you know, I mean, it's the same thing. No, they have never touched either one of those. So those are, yeah, you can put those on the platter. They're not going to bother them.
And
Yeah.
Lynn made the comment that Iris, am I saying this right? Palladia? I would say Palladia.
Pallida. Yeah,
Pallida.
but either way, yeah.
Emphasis on which syllable is fragrant with a grape scent. That was a nice comment.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah,
You don't think of it as much because a lot of times it doesn't even have the fragrance to. I mean, you know, the flower is not that much. You're always looking for that accent. So that's absolutely right. Yeah.
So those are our questions so far. So make sure you put them in the chat, and we'll be making breaks along the way to have Sue answer those.
All right, great. Okay. So I had to toss in stuff like welcome back our returning friends. Things like the great blue herons. You know, it's just so cool to see a rookery and look up there and see them in their, you know, having their nesting sites up there. And then him down in the water, the great blue heron. I took this picture several years ago, and I just thought it was so cool that the starlings and the robins were all chatting together and having a nice little feast in there. They were, you know, the snow was melting and they were drinking it as the snow was melting and stuff. And my pine tree was just filled with them and everything. It was just, I just thought it was a neat picture. I had to put it in there. And then these are not staged pictures. That dandelion was actually blooming right next to a robin's egg. And on that bottom right, that mother robin, she's actually looking into a glass window. So it looks like there's two of her and 6 kids, but there's only 3 there. So You know, that's just part of this. And you know what happens? They're going to make a big mess for you if you put them let them go in the wrong spot. So if you see them, setting up a nest, don't worry about it. When it's young and they're just starting, you can take it down and let them build it somewhere else so that it's not in a bad spot for you too. I added this one yesterday. I'm always tweaking and changing things around a little. I got to talk about the hummingbirds, and the cardinals are phenomenal right now. They are chirping and singing to us, and I'm watching them because they a lot of times go back into the arborvitaes and make their nests. And I think they're doing it again by my house. But what I wanted to put in there right in the center, well, on the bottom right, I've got, like the hummingbird feeder. I put my feeder out at the end of April. Because those male scouts come in earlier for, the nesting, where they're going to have their nest. So I usually by, maybe the April 25th, 6th, 7th, 8th, I put it out a little, although we don't see them a lot of times till the beginning of May. But that in that inset, in that bottom right one, that's the hummingbird feeder that I love the most. And I keep telling people about it. And finally, I took a picture yesterday. So it's not outside with a Hummer on it. I got to get a better one. But to me, I call that like a satellite feeder. And you fill it up with water. And I got it at Wild Birds. And, they sit on the edge. There's the stem for them. But the thing I like about that is the bees don't go to that one. So I don't get the yellow jackets in that. In the very center is, you can put water in there so that, it's like a moat to keep the ants out and stuff. But I do not have bee issues with this feeder. So that's why I'm showing. So that's the one in that left little small inset compared to the one with the hummingbird on the right there. That one I'll always get bees and yellow jackets in late summer, and they just drive you crazy. So I wanted to add that just, for another just thing that, I have or note that I found that was very helpful. Spring peepers, cool little frogs. The turtles are back. Some subdivisions, a friend of mine lives in a subdivision where they'll all be hatching and cruising all around, and we walk around and go pick them up and put them back in the take them out of the streets and put them back in the ponds and stuff. So look down right now. Okay, it's been very dry. And the other day when we were at Meadowbrook and we were pruning, that soil was dry. I mean, you're looking around, you weren't going to get muddy knees or anything else. It was very, very dry. Now today we got more moisture. But this is what you always want to see. You want to see clumps. You want to see air spaces. For your plants to thrive the best, you have to have those air spaces. You have to have those clumps. So if we do something like this, we go and we step down on it, we compact that soil, we smash it out, and we smash the air out from underneath it. And a lot of times that air does not return or for a long time. We're not the only ones that can do that. We have, you walk the same path all the time. Maybe just put stepping stones in there. Don't bother planting plants because they won't do as well. Or you've got like animals like this, cute little guys that do the same path every time. They go the same way. And so they basically, even though they're smaller, got big dogs, whatever, they compress that soil down too. So think about that. This picture for us is kind of like an oxymoron because we've got hostas and we've got tulips, and those are the Angelique tulips there. But many times this is what you'll see of that instead. And who, me? Yes, this is the one that did all that damage. So, we got to adjust and adapt and move on. We can adjust and adapt and move on in something like this. But then again, that might not be, especially with the rusty poles, that might not be the way to make your garden look any better. So think about things like this, desiccation. We don't always get enough rain, enough snow, enough moisture for plants. And so if you've got, especially people have things like the hydrangeas that they really want to try to get through the winter, you might fill this all the way up with leaves, put chicken wire around it so there is some air circulation. But if that buys you 5 to 10 degrees on those buds, that might be good enough for that area. Another sign to watch for, things like this right now, these are the hostas coming up, but if you see those roots sticking out of the ground, pull some soil up next to it, cover those roots up. I wouldn't push this down into the soil. I would rather pull stuff up to it to cover those roots. Or if we see something like this, sometimes this is a small fir. This was Horseman's Silberlock. That's going to get, it's a really cool plant, but you see that popping up in the spring like that, you straighten out, but that's from frost heaving. It's from freezing and thawing that tipped it like that. Salt burn is a big issue. This is at one of our clients' house, and they live right on Middle Belt Road. And so there's always salt spray. We do things like this to help. And you'll notice what we did. I'm going to, wait a minute, if I can, instead of something like, see how that, the next slide where I show you the burlap, you can see those are roses down the middle in the center there that are open. That burlap does not touch those roses, and we try not to touch most of the plants. You don't want to do something like this, and you're not going to notice the problems in the winter time. But those things are, if you're wrapping them individually like that, I mean, while it is a very beautiful effect in someone's eyes, I mean, of course it probably is, but the problem with that is that that burlap acts like a wick and actually takes the moisture out of the leaves. We're not going to notice it in March. We're not going to notice it in April, but the end of May and June, that's when they really start drying out, and you figure, why did that happen? But it actually happened because of January, February, March. So good thing to know. Best thing you can do is push the salt through the soil. Push the salt through the soil with a slow trickle. Let it go in a slow and push that. You have dog issues, things like that. In the spring, all of a sudden, there's a lot of salt in different areas. That's the way to do it. You could leave it go running for, a couple hours just to slowly push that through and help that salt go out of the soil. There is danger of frost. We got a beautiful day, and then we have a crappy day, and we have another crappy day, and there's nothing we can do about things. These hyacinths got hit by a ice storm. But you would take the pictures and enjoy them before that happens. The Catinus, the golden spirit, remember that as these plants are leafing out, bugs are also thinking about what they're going to have as their tasty morsels come into play. Aphids are one. And I'll tell you what, a lot of times what I use Murphy's oil, soap, and water on those. I spray them down. I'll spray them with a hose to knock a lot of the aphids off. And then I'll use like a cap full of Murphy's oil to like real warm water in a, like maybe like a fantastic bottle sprayer, like, a 32-ounce spray or whatever. And just, shake it up. Don't use Fantastic. I mean, it'd be a clear sprayer, but just Murphy's oil and water, shake it up and then spray those. I do things like that instead of trying, you could try insecticidal soap too. But remember, when you see that young stuff, also keep watching for what else we're going to be dealing with. And shiny leaves. Shiny leaves is another good example of the sooty mold and things that are going to come. So, check your Yugo pines and things like that and watch what they're doing. And cross branches, another thing, with the cross branches, you see the scale that's starting to form there because the plant's a little bit weak, and time to take the troublemaker out, get them out of there. So vines, just want to show you this. Remember, for the clematis vines or clematis, whatever you want to use, we are going to be fighting them. We are going to be going out there right now, not today because it's wet, but going out there, trimming them back, and then they are going to be grabbing onto each other. We all know how that works. This is what you're watching out for. If you see things like the stems with white and everything, you want to trim back lower than that, because that is all open, and that can be open to fungus that can attack it later on, like the clematis wilt. So you want to prune back below that. I hope you can see this. These are two pictures. Left is before, and that's the clematis in the, going up the side of the house. And then it's the same picture on the right. It's just what we have trimmed out. So we thinned out everything to get it all nice and open. It can still grab on, but it's not as crazy as it was before. And then we're just wanting it to go up and around instead of going full bushy like it was before. Weeding, I want to show, of course, we know that one. We're watching for weeds, but this is one I really want you to watch for. You can go out today, and if you have carpet weed, you will see it. And this is what it is going to look like. So if you don't recognize it one way, this is what it will look like. It's I call it Velcro plant because it just grabs onto you. If you wear rubber gloves, that's the best way to do it because it won't grab onto your rubber gloves. But if you've got cotton gloves or anything, you are going to have it grabbing all over the place. And then it also has like the seeds are like sticky balls that hang on to your hands and stuff too. So when it's young, that's the time. When it's younger now, you see leaves like this right now, that's the time to get rid of it. So watch out for carpet weed. I hate it, and I got it every year. I'm getting it. Oh, and it's also got like a very fine roots to it. So I usually take a shovel and dig up underneath it. I don't just pull it because if I just pull it, I will probably rip the root, and so it'll just start again. So go that way. Grass is a weed if it's in the wrong spot. On the very far left, you see black edging along that edge. So now's the time. What you do now saves you tons of time and work later. Horsetail, another one. It's coming up. And when you see this one coming up, it's got dark black roots to it. Dig those up by hand if you can. Get underneath there. We have contests like, to see when we're working together, like see how many, roots we can get out of that. We have 3 of us working together. And we have so many clients. We have condo complexes. We have residential homes that we take care of their gardens. We plant their flowers. We do everything else. And then we have other places where we just do the lighting. So we have 2 different things. And the lighting is just phenomenal because what you see in the daytime is day, but at night, it's just great. But so when we're out there and we're working in the gardens, our challenge is to see who can get the longest stems and our roots. So we get rid of things like horsetail. This is one of my pet peeves. This is the stuff you see like when you're over at Kroger and different places. A lot of these landscapers cannot cut down low enough. They leave it like things like this, and they shouldn't. When you're cutting grasses back, you cut them as far to the ground as you can, because that's where the crown of the plant and the new stems coming up, they will see the sunlight and they'll start growing. In a spot like this, they can't see the sunlight, so you're not rejuvenating them. I mean, I don't recommend doing this. I would never tell people to do that, but I mean, ideally, if you caught it on fire and let it burn down, that's the best way for the plant because then it opens everything up and to sunlight and then it's ready to go. It's really, really happy, but you don't want to do that. But so just get as low as you can and that'll help. Now, these are the things that I read about and then say, oh, forget it. I'm not paying attention to you. I'm doing it my own way. This was blue oak. This is blue oak grass, and blue oak grass is an evergreen. And with an evergreen, they say, go ahead and don't ever cut this back. Just let it go. Well, I didn't. I cut it back. I said, it looks ugly that way. And, nobody who wrote the book is in my backyard. So I cut it back. And then 3 weeks later, this is how it looked. So I learned that, okay, we do cut things back like that. Even though it says it's an evergreen, we go ahead and do that. Carrick's Ice Dance, I go back and I cut it back. And 3 weeks later, it starts coming back and it's much stronger and thicker again. So these things work. Spireas, I know a lot of you cut the spireas down. The spireas are the ones that are blooming, or not blooming, but starting to emerge. But the only time you do this is right now. And you'll see, now you see them, now you don't. We cut them totally to the ground. We took everything down from them. So if we go back to look, that's where they were. We cut them back And I do that probably every 2 or 3, probably every 3 years. I cut them back like that, rejuvenate some, get some better. But I do it I do it in March. Go out there now because the plant is dormant. It's just sitting there. It's not doing anything. You cut it back now and then kaboom, when it comes out of dormancy, then here it comes. It starts getting all new leaves. It looks better. And then it's a regular plant later on. So that you did not hurt the plant, you actually helped it. You can do the same thing with potentillas. Potentillas a lot of times look kind of like garbage collectors. Cut them down to the ground now, and then that's the only time of the year you do it is now, and then they'll come back. Butterfly bush, you can cut it back now. It was a sub shrub. You leave it for the winter. You cut it back now. This one I just wanted to show you. We're not doing a pruning class right now, but I just wanted to show you, ideally what you would want to do is people like manicure their use so much in that top right. We start doing things like on the top left to start making windows to open it up because to get more sunlight into the center of the plant. Because on that bottom right, if you look at that picture and you hold that plant open, yous are one of the few evergreens that can have evergreen needles throughout. So what I want to do is like the one on the left, I want to keep it open so that way we do get sunshine through the whole plant and you get a fuller, healthier plant that way. So if you can't, if you want them pretty manicured and everything else, at least put some windows in there to get some sunshine through there so that it gets thicker and healthier through the center of the plant. Red twig dogwoods up above, what happens is, see how they got the brown stems on them? When you trim them and you just like shape them, it's called canker dieback, and it will dye back all those stems to that dark brown. So then we went in there and we cut all those out, thinned them out. Now you have just the red stems, and it's fine. It rejuvenates the plant, and they're much happier and healthier. You can do the Catinus, you can do the smoke bush now. You can do the golden spirits. You can do the royal purple smoke bushes. And you could also do things like the hydrangeas. We were just doing those. I wasn't doing them, but in the over at Meadowbrook the other day, taking those back about a third, which is absolutely perfect because they're going to bloom in July and they'll bloom on nice strong stems and stuff. So works out perfect for those. There's a lot of work to do out there, and then they'll be blooming later on. I like getting the paniculatas because they bloom on new wood. So we cut them back now. This is pink diamond. I was saying one of my favorite ones, there's limelight, there's little limes, there's little lambs. There's a lot of different really cool plants out there, but the paniculatas I think are probably my favorite just because you clean them up and then they're good to go and they bloom throughout the summer and stuff. So some bloom later. Little lime or limelight doesn't start blooming until maybe like the second or third week in July. And that's when it starts blooming. So some are earlier, some are later. So fun to go. Roses, just tossing this picture in just for the idea for you to know, just that's an open plant. You keep that plant open. And so everything is aiming out. You cut above branches or stems so that those buds are aiming out. And that's when the roses are the happiest. We're going to contain things like we were talking before. I heard you guys talking about the lily of the valley. Oh, for what it gives you, the fragrance, I don't know. It's not a good one. I don't like it as much anymore. I take it out. And the Pachysandra, look at the roots on the Pachysandra, but you have got to contain it or at least pull it back so that your tree or shrub or anything that's around it also gets water and nutrients, because these will just suck everything out of there. They will take it all out. So, and here's my peonies popping up. And this is what we do with them to make sure that, they're standing tall and standing upright. So go out there now. You know where they are. They're starting to pop up. Now's the time to put your stakes on them if you can. And night lighting. Don't forget the night lighting. It's all part of it, because then what you see during the day, you can also enjoy at night. And that's probably my favorite part because it's just like you're driving around the corner and all of a sudden you see this flowering tree lit up, and it's like your whole evening just comes alive. There's so much to it. We go through winter, we're into spring now, and we just want to see stuff. And this is another way that we can capture it and just really enjoy it. So I hope that's given you a great idea of some things to do. I'll open it up to some more questions and chats right now, but I think that gives you kind of a broad overview of the things that we're doing and looking at right now.
All right, we have a couple of questions. Mary asked, which plants are good for a shady woodland?
Well, well, I mean, the first one that came to mind was the trillium and stuff. I mean, for a shady woodland, but then the problem with them is the deer, will eat them and things like that. I like things like, well, boy, I mean, it's not a spring bloomer, but I like things like that Jack Frost. I mean, the Jack Frost with the perennial forget, something that is gonna like stand out for the springtime, and and that you can look back on it. Obviously you're not gonna put hostas back there, but don't, plants that are really gonna stand out and make a statement. I mean, yeah, you could definitely put, depending on if you want things to run and not do anything. It just kind of depends on what your goals are. That's probably the main thing. And then you can choose plants from there, because, they're ephemeral. They don't last forever. But boy, I mean, if you can like toward the edges, like, maybe put some of the bleeding hearts so that you see them, and put some of the gold leaf type plants in there so that you can see them and stand out. You don't have to go deep into the woodlands, but just have them along the edges. And that's kind of like your signals. It's like your stop signs to say, come here and look this way because it's going to look pretty. So I think you first have to figure out what your goals are, how bright it's going to be, or where you want to lead people's eyes to. Maybe put some stepping stones out there, trim some of the trees so that you've got some places to go. And then you can accent them with plants along the way. And that will kind of like really bring it alive. I hope that helps. But first you got to get a goal of what you're actually trying to accomplish. And then the plants are kind of like the cherry on the top.
Mary made a comment that deer scraped the bark and some of it died off on a new small witch hazel.
Yeah, and not that was probably more just because, yeah, they're scraping the bark with which it doesn't matter if it's a witch hazel or a hydrangea tree, it doesn't matter. They're just doing that. Your best thing for that would be in the fall to make sure you put like protective tubing on it. They're just going to rub. They don't care what plant it is. It's just they're going to rub.
But at least they didn't eat it.
Yeah, they didn't eat or knock
Mary,
it down because they'll break them too.
Yeah.
They'll like snap them right over. Yeah.
Mary Ellen had made the comment that the perky pet feeder is easy to clean.
Okay.
Good to know. Ruth Ann asked, and this seems to be the day of plants I can't pronounce, can Deutzia be cut back in early spring?
Yes, you really don't want to because they're going to bloom in the spring. I mean, if you don't care about the flowers, then go ahead, but I would wait until after it flowers and then trim it back. And then you could kind of go in. If you don't care about the flowers, go ahead and do it, but I would wait thin it out because I've got a couple out here. And I'll just wait until they flower and then I go ahead and do it after. And they're not, unless they're real big, I mean, they're not that tough of a plant to do. Like we were doing the Weigelias the other day. They weren't that tough to do. So I would hold off if possible.
Claire, and I'm glad she asked this, should we be cutting windows in our boxwood hedges to allow air circulation and sunlight?
I do. Because it's the same thing. The boxwoods are the same thing. And especially with, boxwood blight coming out now, which is a fungus and things, I try to, and I'm doing these at clients. And so that's a little bit different. If it's my own house, I can make bigger windows, I can get things going. But at clients, I don't cut as severely, but I try to keep that air circulation. Every plant, I think, needs good air circulation. So yeah, if you can do it, I do it for boxwoods for sure.
While we're on boxwoods, I'm going to jump down because Claire also asked, something's eating my boxwood. Is it spider mites? How should I treat them?
No, you take some pictures, take a look at what it is. Maybe go to the MSU sites because it could be boxwood blight. And if it is, and it looks like mites, if it is, then go ahead and look at it. The best way to do it is you're going to actually go and take a leaf and like snap it open and see if there's bugs inside, and that'll give you a clue of what's going on, or it looks like little black bugs or things like that inside. But check for boxwood blight to see if it could be that, because that's typically what's going to be out there. And then that's a whole nother issue you might have to deal with. So, and some people are just going to, I mean, if it's affecting a lot of them, you might just want to take the boxwood blight out or boxwoods out and start fresh with something totally different, and which would mean not an evergreen, but maybe, deciduous something that you can keep to the same size. So check first and get a good determination of what it is, and then go from there.
Good. Jean wants to know, when do you cut back roses?
April 15th, right after you pay your taxes.
But there's an extension this year, so don't think that
No,
applies
there's
to
now
roses.
it's still, yeah, so it messes me up. But usually I say, okay, you took out your, wait, because people go, you're antsy, you want to get out there and you prune them early. And then if we get a frost, then you cut it back and you had it perfect the way it was, real nice. And then you get a frost and then it dies back farther down and it kills that bud that you had just cut above. So I usually wait until mid-April, and then I go back out and then I prune them out. So, and that's helped me throughout all the years, is always wait until April 15th.
Mary Stella asked, do you cut the paniculata to the ground?
I never have. No, I wouldn't do that for those. I would just, mostly with those, I just trim them. I mostly just take all the dead flower heads off, and then just trim them to shape them. I kind of thin them out like I do everyone. I'm always looking for cross branches, no matter if it's a crabapple or what. I'm going into the center, looking for cross branches, and then trimming off the flower heads, and I'm done. So I wouldn't go all the way down with those.
Okay. There are two, pardon me, two comments going back to the woodland and the shade, and I'll combine them too. Corey Dallas is good woodland plant. It does spread, but it's easy to pull out. Yellow flowers all summer, and the water edge is in the shade too.
That plant is the Corydalus, and there's a yellow version. There's also and that's a good plant. There's the blue, like the blue pandas. There are like the pink ones. There's a bunch of different ones. And all of them, the Corydalus yellow is the lutea. Of all of them, that yellow is probably, and that is a good plant as far as that goes. But it's one that will just spread. So if you don't care about how far it goes, then go ahead and go for that one.
Forget about the water edge, because I missed the first part of the question. Suggestion for water edge ground cover after forget-me-nots, and the water's edge is in the shade. That was a two-parter.
What we have used at the water's edge, we did use the Carex, those ice dance that I showed you. We used those. I have used bee balm at the water's edge, and even though it's like a shadier spot, they will still bloom in those areas, and the deer don't bother them. I have used for something for brighter area things. I've used the cardinal flower lobelia in those areas, and they love that wet. Now, the only thing is with those is they might not live for there. A lot of times they just live like maybe 2 to 3 years. So you'd have to replace them. But they do very, very well in a wetter spot like that. But yes, surprisingly, like the sedges will do very well. So you could try the sedges there for sure too. So those are just, but we used a lot of those and we use red twig dogwoods like that area if you need something bigger. But we use a lot of the cardinal flower there for one client. Oh, and hibiscus, the hibiscus like wetter soil too. So we used a lot of those in those areas, and it really brightened that whole spot up and looked great the whole time. So,
Excellent. I think our last one is going to be, and I think you touched on it a little bit. What do you do about Wigalias cut back when, how much?
yeah, okay, well, we did that the other day. But basically they bloom on old wood and new wood. So the variety that I have now that I really, really liked is Sonic Bloom. It seemed to like really bloom when it rebloomed, it really bloomed full. So if you're trimming them back now, you're cutting off the flower heads, but I trimmed them back the other day at Meadowbrook because they were so tight and they were so full. And this is a good time to open them up. You're still going to have tons of flowers on the edges. I just kind of like the window technique. I just went into the center and trimmed out the branches to trim them back, but I still left, you could go look at the ones at Meadowbrook to see what I did on those. So I left it. So I just thinned it, and then we leave them. And then after they flower, you can trim them again to kind of shape them back up again. And then they'll rebloom a second time. So they bloom on both old and new wood. So, and same thing, go back and get some of the thickest ones at the base out. That's the key. The lilacs, the Wigalias, all of the red twig dogwoods, the forsythias, all those that like kind of like cane type ones, they all take them back to the base and get the thickest ones out. Your flowering wood always flowers best on young wood. So that helps the most. So
Excellent. Any more questions anybody wants to put into the chat? We'll give you just another minute. That might be everything. So we'll go on and wrap things up. And Sue Grubba, we want to thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us today. There are always questions because we're always learning, right? So please, Creative Scapes is Sue's business. When she's not helping all of us out, actually doing what she does best for other people. Next month in April 23rd, we're going to have Captivating Combinations with Julia Hoffley. Do know that will not be recorded, so do try to put that on your calendar. A recording of today's will be available next week. We'll post it up to YouTube and share it in the newsletter. And so, Sue, thank you so much. Your power stayed on, the internet stayed up. So spring is here, the gods are smiling.
I have to thank Beth so much because you guys don't know the extra work that she does behind the scenes. We were on yesterday and figuring things out and getting it so that it would run smoothly today. And you have done a phenomenal job, and you also make it very stress-free because I know Beth is there handling everything, and that is a huge part of this. So thank you, Beth, for all you've done for this presentation.
My pleasure, because I was actually making it harder for her last night. But I do want to share with you that everybody says thank you so much. Great presentation, wonderful photos, all thousands of them that you have. You can never have enough photos.
Yeah,
thanks for some great ideas. So thank you, Sue, and we'll see you out there. All of us out at Meadowbrook. So
I can run back out there to help. Before we get started, if you guys decide to do another pruning one and I can get out there, I will be out there with you. So thank you. I enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks, everybody.